This lesson continues with the construction of a pivot table which we introduced in the previous lesson. We further explore various options available to summarize data and present it in a pivot table, also known as a summary table. Continuing with our study of pivot tables, we are working on a file that contains all Summer Olympic medal winners from 1976 Montreal Olympics to the 2008 Beijing Olympics. In an earlier lesson, we had used this file and created a pivot table in a separate worksheet where we created a table where the vertical axis consisted of all the countries and the horizontal axis consisted of the medal tally, broken up across the three categories of medals. Whenever I click anywhere on the pivot table, on the right hand side, I see the pivot table field list, which contains the various columns in my data and the tools to create the pivot table. And whenever I click anywhere other than the pivot table on my spreadsheet, the right hand side field list vanishes. The pivot table that we have, we can do further processing on it. For example, if I wish to sort the column labels, I could click on the pull down menu next to column labels and then choose a particular sorting option. Let's say I choose a reverse sorting option. So notice my column labels now are sorted in a reverse alphabetical manner. In this case, though, it makes more sense to have the bronze medal, then the silver, and then the gold. So I could manually sort it also. So I select the bronze column label, take my cursor to the edge of the cell, and then drag it and place it in front of silver. So now I have manually sorted it, and now I have my bronze medal, the silver medal, and the gold medal. This pivot table contains all the medals received by these countries across all the years, 1976 through 2008. What if I wish to see only the medal tally for the Sydney Olympics in year 2000? I can do that by using the report filter option on the right hand side. So I wish to filter this pivot table using the year. So I select the year variable, drag it, and place it in the report filter area. So on the top of the pivot table, now I see year there, and this allows me to now filter the pivot table according to a particular year. So if I click on the drop down box next to year, I can select the year 2000. Click on 2000. I can also select multiple years if I want, but in this case I'm interested only in the medal tally in the Sydney 2000 Olympics. So select 2000, do an OK. So now my report has been filtered, the pivot table has been filtered, and now I have got a medal tally only for the 2000 Sydney Olympics. Further, if I wish to see within the Sydney Olympics a medal tally only for the sport of boxing, I could add yet another filter to my report by dragging the sport on the right hand side, the sport field, and placing it in the report filter area. So now I have an option to filter my pivot table on yet another column, which is sport. So I go to sport, I click the drop down menu and select boxing. First I unselect all and then select boxing. So now I am filtering my pivot table by filtering my medal tally by year as well as sport. So I'll get a medal tally for the 2000 Sydney Olympics for boxing. I do an OK. So this is my medal tally for the countries which won some medal in Sydney 2000 Olympics in the sport of boxing. If on the other hand, I want the medal tally broken up across all the sports, in that case, I'll first remove the sport filter. I could do that either by clicking on the drop down box next to sport and selecting all the sports, doing an OK, so that I get a tally for all the sports, or I could also remove the sport from the report filter area. So I drag sport and place it back in the pivot table field list. This removes the filter on sport. Next, since I want the medal tally broken up across all the sports, so what I can do is I can select the sport column and add it as yet another row label. So I select sport, drag it and place it where it says row labels. So now I have two sets of row labels, the country and then the sport. And notice in my pivot table, I have the country and all the sports in which the country won some medals in the 2000 Sydney Olympics. And I also get the subtotals of the country's total medal tally. And at the very end of the pivot table, I get the grand total of all the medals.